Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending. We appreciate you guys.
Yes, hi, welcome everyone. Thank you guys for being here, taking time from your Saturday to be with all of us here. We're really excited to have you here and of course to bring some information to you and hopefully to others. We'll have a series of presentations and this is our first one, so we're really excited to have you guys here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go ahead and start sharing. So let me see if it works. Okay, I think you guys are seeing the presentation. Yes, hopefully. Okay, so my name is Rebecca Alvaron, and we are presenting to you some information along with.
My name is Benjamin Graham, guys. Part of the Good Neighbor Coalition here with Rebecca. We're going to present some stuff on the Simi Valley budget for you guys.
Absolutely, and we're really excited to have you guys all here. We've been working on this presentation for a while now, and we're just really excited. We're two people that are committed to making Simi Valley a better place for everyone, and so we're really excited to hopefully bring more folks in. And one good way to do that is by making sure that the information for the city is accessible to everyone. So that's one of our hopes and goals for today. So we're going to get started. So our presentation is navigating and understanding the city of Simi Valley, and it is the city budget. So let's go on.
Okay, so first things first, guys, we're going to do a little introductory poll on kind of your current understanding of the budget. So it's going to pop up on your screen here in a few seconds. Go ahead and take some time to respond to that, and we'll continue. Thanks, guys.
That's some juicy stuff on that survey. So it looks like we got closing the poll there. We're gonna move on. Okay, so I'm gonna go over just kind of an introduction to the agenda. I'm gonna give you guys an overview about what we'll be talking about, so you guys kind of know more or less, what we're doing, why we're here today. So as far as our agenda goes, we'll be going over what is the budget and why does it matter. What is the budget? How does it impact you as someone just in the valley or caring, working, living here? And how is the budget allocated? We're going to go through an explanation of the general fund and revenue. We're also going to be going through allocating of funding, and we're also going to be going over, what is the city's process for developing the budget. We want to know who the key players are and their roles. What is the timeline? When is the budget going to be presented? And then, of course, opportunities for community input. We will have a call to action and, of course, a Q&A section. So you guys can ask questions, and hopefully, we can either provide some information on those questions, and if not, we will research it and get back to you guys, okay?
Awesome. So just like Rebecca said, first things first, we got to talk about what is the Simi Valley budget and why does it matter?
Yes. So what is the budget? The budget is a financial plan that allocates money to various departments of the city, including police, transit, and water. It is important to note that the Parks and Rec, the fire department, the Simi Valley Unified School District, they all have separate budgets from the Simi Valley City budget. Okay, so they are separate. So right today, our presentation will focus just on the Simi Valley City budget. Okay. The budget outlines the city's priorities in terms of funding and monetary attention, and it tries to anticipate. The budget steers the city's operations and appropriates money to departments for the following year. So we have a new fiscal year coming up. The budget is not set in stone. It can be edited or adjusted by the city council. The city budget is a living and breathing document that leads the city for organization, but can be edited if necessary. And it is a statement of our values. What do we care about? Where are we allocating our money? What are we funding for our city? It is the city budget's life. The document is either being proposed, adopted, or readjusted throughout the year.
Awesome. So how is the budget applicable to your life? So first things first, the majority of our funding for Simi Valley comes from property taxes. So it's your money, number one. So this means that the budget dictates the allocation of money given from each service or resource in Simi other than our Parks and Rec department, as well as the Simi Valley Unified School District. So things like public transportation, affordable housing, road infrastructure, environmental upkeep are all affected by the city's funding or lack thereof.
Absolutely. So how is the budget, how is Simi Valley's budget actually allocated?
So we're going to go over the various types of funding today. We're going to focus primarily on the general fund. So that includes areas like the police department, public works, environmental services, administrative services, city administration, and city attorney. It's important to note that the general fund specifically focuses on personnel costs, while some of these other areas, specifically the enterprise fund, that accounts for the cost for resources and services. So not to get confused between the two, the general fund is going to be personnel, while enterprise fund is going to be those resources and services.
Absolutely. So let's go on. So then the general fund, we have a graphic up. So this is for the public works. And we have, like I mentioned, general funds, which covers personnel, and then enterprise funds, which covers resources and services, such as sanitation, waterworks, maintenance. Our little drawing is a little off, but that's okay. So it's just what essentially it is if you are looking at the graphic, it is everything that's in the square box. So that is our general fund allocation, and everything that you see listed. So if we're looking at, like, for example, the deputy public works director, it has like water systems, inspection, water production, distribution, all of that comprises the enterprise fund. So it's just our little drawings a little bit off, but essentially that's the breakdown, and that's what we're looking on. We're looking at as far as the general fund goes.
Okay, so to focus here on the general fund, it's like we talked about already, our main source of revenue for Simi is property taxes, as well as sales taxes in the area and service charges. But for the general fund, our personnel takes up around 85% of that fund. So 85% of the money is going to just pay for the personnel in those different departments. So like we already talked about, the general fund does fund the areas like police department, public works, environmental services, city administration, city attorney, etc. So again, just to kind of reiterate, general fund is going to be personnel. All other costs for these services and resources are going to be part of the enterprise fund or some of the other funds, just so we're aware.
And then we have this pie chart here. So I'll go over kind of the breakdown right there, but I just want to also emphasize that this is our current review of our current budget. So this is what it currently looks like for 2020, 2021 that was adopted last year. And soon we're going to be having an opportunity, to talk about how we would like to see our money spread across different departments in the 2021-2022 budget. So that's going to be what's coming up right now. What we're trying to focus on is kind of getting people up to speed on what our budget currently looks like. And so if you look at the pie chart here, we do have a total budget of, currently a total budget of $75.2 million. That is our general fund. We have different departments that are allocated, a different amount. So we'll start with the one that takes the biggest chunk of the allocation, which is our police department, and their general fund stands at $37.4 million. The next runner up is public works, and that stands at $16.3 million. And then the next one is our environmental services, and they are at 8.1 million. And then our fourth highest one is our administrative services, and they are at $5.6 million. And as you can see, they have a different breakdown percentage of what amount, how the 75.2 million are allocated across these different departments. So if you take a look at just like our top three, you'll see that the police department has 49.7% of the general fund allocation. Our next one is public works. They have 21.7%. And then our third department has environmental services has 10.8% of the general fund. And that's just kind of a nice little breakdown of where the money goes.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. So now we're going to touch on the policies of the general fund. So the council established as a part of the general fund that the city must keep 17% of the general fund separate as an emergency fund for the city. Also, one of the verbiage or some of the verbiage they used in the beginning of the budget is the city will adopt a structurally balanced budget that's fiscally conservative. So essentially, this just means the expenses are not going to exceed the revenue that we're bringing in yearly to the city. Keep in mind that balanced budget part, that verbiage. Let's remember that for later.
Yes. Okay, so then, the general fund, as far as the police department. So, what is this particular department? So this, the police department is responsible for public safety. The department takes nearly half of the city budget. So right now, like you saw in that pie chart, that was at 49%. Most of these costs go to officer personnel, so things like salaries, overtime, benefits, while the slim minority actually goes to trainings, services. So our breakdown here for our current fiscal year, or last year's fiscal year, which we're still in, it's kind of confusing because it's not really a calendar year. It's kind of like half and half. So 2020 and 2021, we are currently at the $37.4 million. So that's 49% of the budget. It is the number one department that receives the most funding, also an increase. So you'll see that, when comparing the different departments and which departments get increases, you'll see that the police department is the one that gets the most funding in percent increases. So one notable thing, just looking at previous years' budget, we did see a $4.2 million increase from fiscal year 2019, 2020 to 2020, 2021. And then Public Works is the second one in increase, and that was at $1.7 million. And the police increase as far as percent increase is more than double. We have lost community services that are focusing on like youth, mental health for this particular department.
Wow, Rebecca, thanks for sharing that. So the police was at 49% of the budget. The next runner up from the general fund is going to be the public works, and that sits at roughly 22% of the budget. So public works is in charge of the public infrastructure. So it's in charge of sewer, maintenance, waterworks, etc. Just to kind of touch back, I know I've said this a couple of times, the general fund is just going to be paying for the guy that goes to fix the road, not the materials of the road or what any other costs that would fall into that category of the work that needs to be done. So that's going to be the enterprise fund. So remember, the general fund is just going to pay for the gentleman that's going to go fix the road. So 22% of the budget from the general fund is going to the public works, and that's 16.3 million.
That's right. And then our next one is, our next department that receives the third highest funding is our environmental services, which is really important. You know, they oversee development of housing, enforcement of proper codes, and sustainability with the surrounding natural environments. You know, neighborhoods, affordable housing, animal services, they really do a lot. And for our current fiscal year, so 2020-2021, they had $8.1 million, which is roughly about 11% of the budget. Well, it was, you saw in the pie chart. But yes, that's our environmental services, you know, taking care of a lot of different really important needs in our community.
Awesome. So the next piece we're going to talk about here is going to be the city administration. So city administration handles the administration and clerical side of the city. So the city manager, city council falls into that bracket there. So this funds all of the city's staffing. And again, that's only 8% of that general fund. That sits about 6.2 million. If we're comparing that to the police departments, 8% to 49%.
You're dwindling down. So let's go to our next department. So that is from the general fund, administrative services. So they're in charge of ensuring the cohesiveness and effectiveness of other departments, which of course are working to serve the community. So really essential things, you know, that make sure that the other departments can function, such as like payroll, accounting, you know, media, graphics, services, mailings, all those things that, you know, whether, you know, internally and of course externally, you know, reaching out to making the city work. And their budget is currently at $5.6 million of the general fund, and that's roughly about 8% of the entire budget.
Okay, guys, so now we're going to touch on COVID budget preparedness. So as a response to COVID-19, additional funding has been set aside to combat any negative economic impacts on the budget. So there's 4 different areas here. We have the COVID-19 Recovery Fund, which sits at $6 million. We have the CARES Act Fund, which sits at $7.3 million. An Economic Recovery Fund, which is at $5.1 million. And then the American Rescue Plan, which is at $15 million. So our budget is predicted to remain relatively strong because, again, we rely on something stable like property taxes versus relying on something like tourism that could fluctuate. But we do need to remain mindful on, this is a big sum of money. So we want to be mindful of where this money is going to end up going in the future. So we probably will end up having some left over. So we want to kind of be mindful of like where this is going, just keep our eyes on these COVID funds here.
Absolutely. And it's super important, but let me go on to the next slide so we don't get stuck there. You know, the COVID budget is something that I think COVID obviously has impacted us all. We are, I think, really lucky that we've had different sources of funding that are not coming into the city. And we're really excited about, what that means for everyone in our city, especially the people who have been most impacted by COVID. So we do have, it's really important for us to know, like, where we're at with this money, how much are we getting, how much is being infused into, the budget, and then to try to advocate on like how we want to see it, used in our city. It's really important. Today I was, driving around Simi Valley. I had errands to run, and there's 2 signs up today for food distribution. And I think it's really important for us to be mindful of, many of us, are getting our COVID vaccines and are, excited about maybe what the future looks like as our numbers are going down. But it's really impacted a lot of people in our community, and just, seeing the different distributions of food sites in our city kind of grounded me in that, and made me really think of how important it is. So I kind of want to just, I just want to emphasize that. And then I want to go over, what our COVID budget preparedness looks like. And that's, in this current slide. So we do have the COVID-19 Recovery Fund, which was established by the city. That one is currently at $6 million. So it was a one-time general fund allocation of $2.5 million. And there was some of that also came from the 2018-2019 general fund surplus. And that was $3.4 million that were put together. And it was, of course, designed by the city to revive the budget if COVID-19 specifically, affects it. So it's really, it's really good for us to be thinking ahead. And, the city has in this aspect, they have a COVID-19 recovery budget. So that's what you see, that $6 million. But we also have money that's coming in. So we have the CARES Act fund, and the CARES Act is going to bring in $7.3 million. So that was granted from the federal government for public transportation. There's currently no deadline on the use of funds, and the fund can be used to offset the impact of the pandemic as well. Okay. Our next source of funding is going to be the Economic Recovery Fund, which will be $5.1 million, and that was established, in the past by the city. And that was for the economic recession. And if the economic recovery takes a while, this fund would be able to help supplement the fund. And then we also have the American Rescue Plan, which I'm really excited about. And it's really important. If you take anything away from this slide, please take away the fact that the American Rescue Plan is bringing in $15 million to the city of Simi Valley. 15, 1-5. Okay. We're going to put that in a poll as a quiz later. I'm just kidding. The American Rescue Plan is $15 million, and that was granted by the federal government to help the city with the pandemic, and its most recent federal aid to have been received by the city.
Awesome, Rebecca, thanks. We're going to move on and talk about CalPERS here. So what is CalPERS? CalPERS is a pension and retirement plan for city employees. And what's changed with this? So the responsibility fell from being on the state to pay for these retirement plans for employees to now being on Simi Valley. So 33.1% fee increase. That was $5 million that got added into the general fund because the city is responsible for paying for the pension and retirement plan for its employees now. So some of these city employees now have to pay more they have higher payments now for paying for their pension and retirement plans going forward. So we're going to see some impacts on this because of COVID coming in the future, in the upcoming years here. But we also want to be mindful of these increases on employees because they used to get a kind of big discount on the CalPERS fund, but that kind of went away. And so now the city has to pay more, employees have to pay more, everyone has to pay more, and the state is not responsible anymore.
Absolutely. And it's definitely, a challenge that we have to take on. So now we're going to go over, comparing. So we have the city comparison of the police budget and crime, because we think it's important to highlight, what department has the most funding and kind of, look at some data behind that. So Simi Valley currently spends 49% of its city budget on the police. So Simi Valley spends almost 10% more on policing than surrounding cities. So we brought up, you kind of see like a little arc chart. I don't know if that's what it's called, but well, not really a chart, but just so that you guys can visually see, what other cities, what their spending looks like. So ours is at 49%. Then we have Thousand Oaks, our rival, Thousand Oaks, spending 39% of its city budget on the police. And then our neighbor, Moore Park, the city of Moore Park, spending about 40% of its city budget on police.
Awesome. So this is a really cool comparison of the police budget and crime in surrounding areas from Simi Valley. So for us to start out, we have, so a crime will happen to about 10.91 citizens out of every 1,000 in Simi. So it's about 1%, maybe 1.09% of the people will experience a crime. Moving on to Thousand Oaks, a crime will happen to around 11.96 citizens out of every 1,000. And so that's around 1.19% of the people will experience a crime. And then Moore Park, kind of in between the two of us, only 7.26 citizens out of every 1,000 will experience a crime in Moore Park. So that's only 0.73% of people in Moore Park will experience a crime. And comparing that to how much we spend on the police budget, there's a big differentiator there. So we want to take a look at that going forward as well.
So our next one, so kind of a summary of the general fund. So the city of Simi Valley has agreed upon a policy which is to have a structurally balanced budget. We do see some clear imbalances in the budget as far as like where money is allocated. There is nearly half of our current general fund money going to a singular department. There is a construction of various COVID and emergency funds, which have been created to minimize the negative impacts to the budget. We just must be mindful of where this money goes in the following years. And we are going to put up a poll for you guys right now.
So while you guys are taking this poll, I just wanted to mention we're seeing some of the questions that are in the chat here, and we will try to get to you guys here during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. So bear with us here. Appreciate the questions. Keep asking them, but we will try to get you some answers at the end. Thanks, guys. And some of you have already noticed, but there's a little Q&A portion here in the Zoom window. So if you click that, you can type your questions into there and we can see them all in one spot at the end and try to answer those for you guys. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Thanks for doing that, guys. We appreciate you guys. We're going to move on here. So now that we have an understanding of what the budget is, let's talk about what's the process for developing the budget. What's our process so we can understand and see how we can affect it.
Absolutely. So we're going to give a kind of an introduction to the city structure. So you can see there is kind of a little org chart of, what the city looks like. So we have, of course, constituents, residents at the top. We're the boss. We have one mayor that's elected at large. We have 4 city council members that are currently elected, that are going to all be elected into as through districts. And we have our city attorney, we have our city manager, we have different departments such as this administrative services director, environmental services director, the police department chief, and the public works director.
Awesome. So now we're going to talk about the city structure. Just like Rebecca mentioned, let's get some faces for some of those positions here. If you guys aren't already aware, our mayor is Keith Mashburn. Then we have our council members, starting with Ruth Luevanos. Then we have Elaine Lister, Mike Judge, Dee Dee Kavanon. And then we have our city manager is Brian Gabler, and our city attorney is Lonnie Eldridge.
Okay. And so then here you're going to see a map of our current city council districts, what it looks like. It says neighborhood council districts, but they really match our current city council districts. And that's just, it's kind of an easier way to do that. And so I'm going to go through the way that the city basically is broken down and how constituents, depending on where they're living in these 4 districts, how they're voting, for their council members that are running in those areas. So I'll start off with the first one, which is neighborhood council 4. So that's the one in kind of a lilac, really cute purple there. And that area is from Fitzgerald to Terra Rajada. So it's kind of a big chunk there. Our next district is undisputed best district. No, I'm just kidding. It's not because I live there or anything, but District 3, our neighborhood, the city District 3, and that one is from Sycamore to East Easy Street. So you see that one in kind of like the green, a little bit of neon green there going on. And then our next city council district is District number 2, and that one you see in yellow. And that one will take you from Sycamore to about Clear Street, kind of like the lower part of Simi Valley right there, from like kind of the 118 freeway down, right? And then on the other side, we have District 1, and that is in blue. And you will see that one taking us from Alamo through Los Angeles area. So that's our current city council districts right there.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. So next we're going to chat about who creates the budget. So the budget is actually drafted by a few different entities in local government. We starts with between the city departments, between the city manager and the city council. So how it goes is the departments kind of draft up their own individual budgets, and they give this information to the city manager, who reviews and considers what he's gotten. And then they have a meeting and he proposes a new budget that the city council then votes on. And so the city council then has the power to approve, make adjustments, or just kind of go forward with that budget. So like we've mentioned, I don't know if we mentioned this already, but it's in 3 stages that the budget's constantly in. It's either being proposed, it's being adopted, or it's being readjusted.
Absolutely. And there is a timeline, in which they create the budget, or they're constantly always in the process of creating that budget. So here's a little breakdown you guys see of kind of you know, what has probably already occurred, where we're at now, and then what the future looks like as far as, you know, just the timeline um, every year of a budget. So we have November to February, and that is when departments, the department, and you know, they're forming and developing their own budgets according to their needs, right? They're assessing, you know, their services and what, you know, how they're operating. Then you have, you know, early March to late April, and that really is when, you know, the city manager is meeting with various departments, and they're forming, you know, the proposed budget to distribute that out. And then we currently have the stage that we're in right now, which is late May to early June, which is, as far as the budget goes, you know, there's going to be public meetings for constituents to give input at these public budget meetings in regards to what the budget looks like. So there will be a point where it's presented to the constituents, residents, everyone, right? Because it affects all of us. So, and that's kind of, you know, late May to early June, where they'll be presenting what their current budget looks like, and we have an opportunity, you know, to give input. And then what happens after that? So then we have, you know, our June to early July, which is when the city council will vote on the budget. You know, they'll adopt the budget. They get to ask questions. They get to bring things up, you know, voice constituent concerns or amplify them if needed about the budget. And, you know, they eventually will adopt a budget for the city.
Awesome. So constituency input, how can we get involved? So there's three main ways. We have the city council public meeting, we have the public forum hosted by the administrative services director, and we have the budget advisory committee. We'll touch on all these here in a second here. So the city council has the power to vote, adjust the budget based on constituency input. Because we elect these members of city council, we are the ones that elect them. They essentially have this obligation to represent us in our interests. So the best way to kind of advocate for whatever issue we want is to kind of get as many people highlighting this issue or whatever issue it is and the goals that we want to correct or kind of go towards on that issue. So the council has knowledge of this and they can kind of act accordingly. So the best way for them to adjust things in our favor is for us to speak out. And the three main ways, like we listed, is the public forum, that city council meeting, or the budget advisory committee.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, it's us advocating or, you know, just tuning in, you know, learning about the budget and giving our input as, you know, residents or constituents of certain districts is really important. There is a, oops, leaving you guys behind here. Sorry about that. Okay, so we do have the budget advisory committee, which was, you know, members that were appointed by the city council. There are a total of 7 members, and they are members from our community, and they have different involvements. You know, they're small business owners. They're involved. They're leaders in nonprofits. And have other city, you know, affiliations, of course, as residents, and you know, advocating for, you know, what they would like to see our budget look like. And they are members, you know, of course, like I mentioned, that are appointed by city council. In the meetings, the departments will give presentations, so they will hold meetings regularly. They'll hold meetings. Departments will give presentations on their own budget to our budget advisory committee. The committee will outreach to departments through surveys and gauge their insight or knowledge of the budget, and they'll advise the city council on budget related issues. And it has been a while since the budget advisory committee has met. So on the city website, you will see that it says it's your city, your money. right? But we really haven't seen any activity. So we haven't seen any meetings, number one, being posted. We don't know if they're currently meeting or not, because we haven't seen any meeting notices. We really haven't seen any meeting minutes that have been updated since December of 2019. And then it does look like, they have been postponed since January 2020, but we don't really have information on why our budget advisory committee is not meeting. So I would say that there is, a lack of meeting transparency, and when they're holding meetings really is a barrier for giving constituent input, as they are constituents, residents that are advocating on our behalf as well. And so there was a survey that was performed by the Budget Advisory Committee that was put out to the city, and city employees did report. Some of the findings in that survey were that city employees, were reporting being overworked and underpaid. Most of the anonymous comments from that survey noted that the fiscally conservative nature of the budget stifled the ability to fulfill vacant positions, which led to employees overcompensating on their own individual work, sometimes working through lunch, taking up a task not listed on their job description to make up for empty positions not being filled. And that particular survey that was put out was conducted from August through September of 2019. And it's really unclear whether or not the city has initiated another survey to gauge, how our city employees are currently feeling, or what insight our current city employees could give. As far as the Budget Advisory Committee, they provide recommendations to the city. So they find solutions and present a lengthy list of recommendations. They try to maintain, whether it's maintaining maintaining revenue by job cuts, or, economic development. Really, we need growth.
Awesome. So let's talk about some of the challenges we're facing currently. So one of the main ones is city staff shortages and vacancies. So the root problem of the revenues not being addressed, we're basically trying to cut corners by not fulfilling positions in local government, so we can kind of keep those salaries available to be used in other ways in the budget, which is just not going to work out in the long run for us. That's what's leading to city workers feeling overworked, underpaid, and the city's also just behind on work for us, the constituents. So it's just leading to almost like a snowball effect of worse and worse things happening here, with them not addressing the problem of us not bringing in enough revenue. The next big thing, I don't know if you guys already noticed, but half of the revenue is going to one singular department when we're talking about the general fund. So this leads to loss of funding in other branches, like community service completely disappeared. It's not even being funded at all. And part of the budget, or part of the verbiage of the budget mentions, is that it's going to be structurally balanced and sustainable. And that's just obviously not happening if half of the budget is going to one entity. And there's also these patterns of annual increases. Every year, each piece of the general fund is going up every year, even though our revenue has not been going up. So the last challenge we're facing here is our scarce surplus. So they anticipated in the 2019-2020 fiscal year that we would have a $1.9 million surplus at the end of the year, but they only ended with just under $400,000, which is really, really bad. So there was some effects that COVID had to that. So reduction in sales tax revenue, hotel bed tax revenue, and the gas tax revenue, obviously all affected by COVID-19. But what looked out for the city, and we got this unanticipated one-time property tax, the tax equity allocation, which resulted in a $3.7 million surplus. But if we didn't get this random unanticipated one-time payment, we would not have a surplus at all, which is a big, big problem. So We do have to be cautious of the COVID emergency fund and if the impacts it's going to have on the budget going forward, as well as some of the other challenges we've listed here. So we just want to make sure, again, we are balanced and we are having more revenue than we are spending every year.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are we looking for as far as like solutions? Solutions for economic development. There are current ways, current ways to increase our revenue. There are things like, property taxes, sales taxes, and service charges. Of course, we have our current source of property taxes, which goes to fund things like, urban and housing policies. So, we're talking about mixed affordable housing, whether we're building higher, replacing, maybe single family homes, investing in transportation and pedestrian friendly areas. As far as sales taxes and service charges, it's to attract new businesses and startups, businesses that are attracting a young and educated workforce. We love everyone, but of course we want to also keep and help attract our young educated workforce that we know is out there. Things like technology upgrades and our ability to be remote on the city's end are really important. As far as sales tax increases, we do currently have the lowest sales tax in the region. We must maintain, competitiveness in sales tax. Although it's the lowest, I don't really hear anybody saying like, I'm gonna go shop in Simi Valley because they have the lowest sales tax. People want to go where it's hot and where it's hip and there's cool stuff around. So those are just things to think about as far as what are our solutions to really have an economy that is strong in our city.
Go back one more. There you go. Oh, there you go. Okay, so we're gonna go back to touch on, the public forum. So this is where we can kind of voice our opinions and concerns on the budget for the next coming year. So towards the end of May, the city hosts a public forum on the budget. It's hosted by the Director of Administrative Services. It's kind of like a town hall type meeting with a Q&A, which details how the budget's going to be used for the next year. So it's kind of similar to what we're doing now, just it's presented by the city. So it's held a week before city council. So allowing for us, the constituents, to gather thoughts and suggestions to give the city council during the budget hearing. So this is a chance for us to see what their plan is, see what we want to adjust, and then be able to express that to the city council the following week.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to just highlight what Ben said, that it's something that's happening in May. It is happening like soon. So if you guys have an iPhone, iCalendar, Google Calendar, whatever it is, jot down this date, because this is the date the city put out already, when they're going to have they're going to have the public be able to participate in this Zoom. So this is going to be regarding the proposed budget and an opportunity for us to provide feedback. So go ahead and notate this down. This is going to be for Monday, May 24th. It's going to be at 5:30 p.m. They don't have a link up yet. However, if you go to the city website and sign up for it, they're going to be sending emails so that I guess we can eventually register for it. But just be mindful, keep that date in mind, May 24th at 5:30. It's going to be via Zoom. Okay, it's a really important public forum there that Ben highlighted. Okay, so as far as what the city council budget hearing will look like. So this is kind of like that next step after we initially get the information. So they do have the city council has a budget hearing for this year, and it's tentatively scheduled for June 7th. So it's coming up quick. So you definitely want to put that down in your calendar as well. The city council budget hearing is when the budget is publicly presented to the city council for a vote. it's really important that, we try to participate as much as possible, or even just learn the information, or, like try to get the information, because once it's presented at city council, they're going to be voting on it. So, they'll be presenting it, and it's kind of, at one of those last steps for us to, really dissect the budget or advocate for it. Of course, it is a living document that can be adapted, but I think it's really important for us to kind of, for them to incorporate, what the residents of Simi Valley would like beforehand rather than later. So, that's really important. So they'll be presenting that publicly to the city council for a vote. Constituents at that meeting, of course, can give public comments to the city, as well as suggestions or edits to the budget. The city council has the power to vote on the approval of the city budget, or consider the constituents' remarks and formally add or adjust any requests that people are bringing up. And the city council budget hearing is crucial and is the last opportunity for community members to voice their concerns before the budget is finalized in that way. And we're going to take a quick poll in just a minute, but I just want to emphasize how important it is. Because as someone who has been participating with a lot of amazing folks on our Good Neighbor Coalition, there was a meeting that we had, and we really talked about like what we would like for the city of Simi Valley. And there was some really amazing input. And I was getting excited. I was like, wow, why don't we have that? And they're totally feasible things that we could have as a city, that we could decide that are really important, and that we can work towards, allocating our money towards things that bring joy, that of course have the health and well-being of the community in mind. There was ideas about like community centers, just vibrancy, right? And things that really attract people and make for happy people in the city. So, I mean, there are so many things that other cities have that I feel that we could have as well. I kind of just think about, different places that I go to and why I go to them. And it's, sometimes it's fun things that I want to be able to do. It's have family moments with, my family. So those are just really, things to hopefully get you excited about what the possibilities of, this budget, what it could bring to our city. So really important. And so we're going to bring up the poll now for you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for doing that again, guys. We're going to have another one for you here in a sec. But before we do that last poll, we're going to do our call to action. And what's the next steps for you guys and for all of us?
Yeah, so what's next? Of course, it's to attend a city council budget hearing, to give your input. So we already heard it's May 24th, so that's going to be a Monday. And it's really easy. It's going to be over Zoom. If, of course, and we want you to be able to give your input, right, to make suggestions about maybe adjusting the budget. And that's really important. So, please attend that the budget hearing. If you've never spoken at city council or written a letter, so when we have the city council meeting come up, it's really important for us, either to, write in or call in and, give our input. But if you've never done those things, it can be scary, especially if you're just not used to participating in that way. But, it is that is your power. You do have the ability, the power to do that. And so we want to help you do that. So our organization can help in either meet individually or host a workshop on what to expect as far as giving a public comment. We can help form the materials we wish to present. It doesn't have to be super formal. It can be very informal, however you wish to have your voice heard. It's really important just that you participate. And of course, to continue to receive updates, important updates and workshops so that we can kind of, make sure we get you guys to that next step. We do have, we should have, let me go back, sorry guys. We're going to have an email up that you guys can email us for any questions. I don't know if we can put it up, or I can tell you guys what it is. So the email is going to be for our lovely Buen Vecino and good neighbor, Kelly. So it's going to be Kelly at Buen, which is good. It's BUEN hyphen Vecino, which is VECIO, VECINO, I should know that, .org. You guys can email us for any questions. And of course, for us to be providing updates, so you can email us. And we're gonna have.
Thanks, Rebecca. We have one more poll for you guys. I know we've asked you so many questions, so many times to fill out this information, but if you could do that one more time for us, then we'll move on to our Q&A portion. And then thank you guys again for coming as well. But thank you guys for taking the time to answer this poll. Also, I did want to mention we will be hosting a couple more workshops, one in English, one in Spanish. I can give you guys the dates and links to those so you can share if you'd like to, or attend again if you'd like as well. That would be awesome. We would appreciate that. One of them is going to be this upcoming Wednesday from 7 to 8. And then the next one is going to be the 22nd, which is Saturday from 2 to 3. That one's going to be in Spanish on Saturday. And then the one on Wednesday at night is going to be the English one. So we can send that out to you guys as well after this. But thanks again for you guys' time and attending and everything. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so we got all of our feedback there for our last poll. And so now we're going to be going to the Q&A. Oh, and there is that amazing email that I was butchering, guys. So but yeah, so we are going to go through the questions, and of course, thank you guys for attending. So should we just read through it, guys?
Yeah, let's go for it. I think we have one question in the Q&A portion, unless anyone has any more.
Yeah, so we're going to read it, and I think there is one that is.
Yeah, we answered one, I believe, it looks like.
let's go ahead and go through the one that was answered. Ben, do you want to take that one? And I'll do the next one that we're working on.
Yeah, sure. So Sophia asked, do you know the portion of violent crimes experienced by Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, and Moore Park? And so for the answer for that, for violent crimes, the statistics are 168.21 violent crimes per 100,000 people in Simi. Thousand Oaks had 97.43 per 100,000. Moore Park had 130.39 per 100,000. And this is interesting because Simi spends 10% more on police budgeting, but we have still have more violent crimes. So that's interesting. Is the spending going in the right place?
Absolutely. And so then we have one that we're still working on answering, but I'll go ahead and I'll pose the question. So someone asked, who decides how to spend the $15 million? And I'm going to assume that this is the one that we are talking about, are the federal funds that are from the American Rescue Plan. They're coming up. So we're working on getting you guys an answer. But yes, it's 15 million. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. So let me go over what we have as far as, how we can be spending that money. So the city manager does help draft those ideas, and the city council votes on approving it. So city manager right there is coming up with ideas on how they can be spending the 15 million. Although with enough constituency and resident input and community pressure, we can sway their consideration of how we would like to spend that 15 million. So I would say that we could present ideas on how we'd like to see that 15 million spent. As someone who is, you folks are highly invested in making Simi Valley a better place. You guys are here listening to us talk about the budget. Like, you know what I mean? Like, come on. So we know you guys care about Simi Valley. We know that you guys are invested, and you guys are either working or living in Simi Valley, visiting Simi Valley, and you guys see the need in the community. You guys, in perspective, regardless of how little or how long you guys have been here, or how you interact with our city. And so it's important for us to say, what do we want? This American Rescue Plan giving $15 million to the city of Simi Valley, which is amazing. It's a lot of money, and we could do a lot of things that are highly impactful for our community. So I would say, assess what would you like to be seeing with that money, and let's make sure that the city hears us when we say what we'd like to see for the city invest in. So yeah, and definitely, letting our city manager know what our ideas are, since he's the person that's drafting the ideas, which the city council is of course voting on. So we need to be reaching out to our city council. But I know you guys are highly invested, and you guys will have some great ideas on how we could be spending that 15 million. And let me see, I think we have, okay, so we have another one that we're working on answering. So let me go ahead, and Ben, you want to take this one?
Yeah, actually. So Joe asked, hi Joe, by the way, who are the people that make up the BAC, and what excuse has been given for their failure to meet? So members of the BAC are appointed by the city council. So they're regular community members. There's 7 of them, and there has been no apparent reason for their failure to meet. The city manager, Brian Gabler, oversees the committee. Under local leadership, the BAC have not failed to meet, but also their meetings minutes have not been updated on the Simi Valley website for over a year. So apparently they're meeting, but they're supposed to post these, similar to the city council, how they're posted on the Simi Valley website. We're supposed to post, the BAC is supposed to post basically the audio of the meeting. So there just hasn't been posting that. So I don't know if it doesn't look like they've had a reason for that, but they just haven't been doing it. And it's 7, I don't know if I mentioned, 7 members. So, and I believe their names are available to us. I can give you that if you'd like, Joe.
And I just want to say something about how, they are part of, their individuals that are selected, they're individuals that are listening to input from various departments and are kind of, similar to neighborhood council, where they are a liaison, right, between, the direct community needs and or wishes and the city council. And I have to tell you guys that a few years ago, not last year, maybe the year prior to that, I was attending one of the city council meetings, and I did hear the budget advisory committee at that time give a presentation about ideas that they had for the city and the budget. So I think I was maybe like one of 4 or 5 people that were sitting in the chambers at that time. And I didn't really know what they did or who they were, but I remember that I was jotting down notes and, all the ideas that they were presenting, because they do give a presentation. They are a committee that has a set goal. They were meeting at that time and then are presenting information that is, the direct residents' wishes and wants for the budget. And I did hear them say, speak on it. So for us not to have that, I think it's really a disservice to our community and for those that are paying attention. So yeah, I think that's, something that we're missing. They're having our budget advisory committee, or at least the updates, since we don't really know what's going on. And I think, I don't think I saw any other Q&As, any other questions. You, of course, can, if other things come up, or you have other questions, or, want clarification on what we presented, you, of course, can email us. Kelly's email is still on there, so you guys are able to, get that and email us. And I just want to thank you. Me and Ben want to thank you guys for being here with us. And we're a little bit over, so we want to definitely thank you for being here with Good Neighbor, discussing, the city budget. So important.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming and participating, filling out those polls for us, and just really showing up. Like Rebecca said, it really means a lot and shows that you guys are committed to kind of changing Simi for the better. And that's what we're all here for. So really, really thank you guys so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your Saturday.